Hello and thanks for joining us on this Friday. I'm Mackailyn Johnson. Here's a look at the stories we're following today. Now at noon, former President Trump is encouraging the immediate release of the warrant behind the federal search of his Florida home. In 2 minutes, the missing documents the feds were reportedly after. And why millions of Americans are not getting treatment for hepatitis C. Plus, if you're a fan of streaming TV and movies, you don't want to miss our update on what's new. Now, before we get to those stories, meteorologist Nathan Scott is here with us. You know, this week we've had rain, humidity, and now it's super sunny. What can we expect for our weekend, Nathan?
Well, good Friday to you, Mackailyn. We've got overall a decent end to the work week around the region. We're seeing a mixture of sun and clouds out there. You can see the clouds popping up here on visible satellite. These are just cumulus clouds, not much growth to them, but there could be maybe a stray shower into South Arkansas. Temperatures also not too bad. Most locations below 90 degrees. It's 91 to Queen, 88 in the capital city. It's 88 also in Russellville. Good afternoon, Searcy. You're at 85. And here are the dew points into the 70s. So it's still on the humid side, but these numbers will be dropping tonight and especially going into the weekend. The radar loop, it's all quiet right now. But like I said, I can't rule out there could be maybe a stray shower well down into South Arkansas. So here's your planner today. Temperatures will warm all the way up into the low 90s. Yes, it's going to be a little bit on the humid side with that mixture of sun and clouds, but the humidity levels will be coming down for the weekend. However, the temperatures, they will be going up. I'll have more on that forecast coming up.
Thanks, Nathan. And new at noon, the Arkansas Department of Corrections is searching for an escaped inmate who was serving life in prison for rape. 38-year-old Samuel Hartman escaped from the East Arkansas Region Unit in Bricky's this morning. He was convicted of rape in 2013. According to the department, Hartman is around 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighs roughly 230 pounds. He also has several tattoos, including a heart, sword, and the words forever and always. If you see him, contact authorities immediately. A federal judge in Florida set an afternoon deadline for the Justice Department to advise whether former President Donald Trump's attorneys have any objection to releasing the warrant authorizing the search at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Skylar Henry is on Capitol Hill with Mr. Trump's response.
Documents related to the FBI search of former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home could soon be revealed after he called for their immediate release in a late-night social media post.
Copies of both the warrant and the FBI property receipt were provided on the day of the search to the former president's counsel, who was on site during the search.
Attorney General Merrick Garland says the DOJ filed a motion in the courts Thursday to make the documents public.
The real story will be with the release of the affidavit itself, which is not currently planned to be released. It is filed under seal.
The Washington Post is reporting that documents related to nuclear weapons were among the items FBI agents were searching for Monday.
Have you spoken to the president about it?
I have not specifically spoken to the president about what nuclear materials may or may not have been in there. I do not believe there were any in there.
This morning, former President Trump called the report a hoax and then questioned whether agents were planting information during the search. Many Republicans have followed the former president's lead in criticizing the FBI search and are calling for Attorney General Garland to come to Capitol Hill and answer questions as to why he authorized the search.
The FBI raid of President Trump is a complete abuse and overreach of its authority.
The FBI search at Mar-a-Lago has sparked a wave of violent threats against the Justice Department and the FBI. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Analysts monitoring online threats say the threats range from attacks on the FBI and calls for Trump supporters to take up arms against the government. However, they add that at this point, the volume of the rhetoric has not reached the same levels as what was seen in the days leading up to January 6th. And continuing with that, after Monday's search at Mar-a-Lago, anti-law enforcement rhetoric online growing even louder. On Thursday, an armed man in Ohio allegedly attempted to breach an FBI field office, leading to a shootout where the suspect was killed. When an armed agent confronted him, he fled and led police on a high-speed chase down Interstate 71, which ended in a gun battle in a field near Wilmington, Ohio. Now to the push to legalize recreational marijuana. Voters will now see it on the November ballot, a sudden reversal of what was decided by the State Election Commission just last week. What this decision means is that the recreational use marijuana measure will be printed on the November ballot, but by the time the election rolls around, it may not be valid, so votes won't be counted. For the votes to be valid, the state Supreme Court will decide if the ballot title is acceptable. That's the next step. Steve Lancaster, the attorney for Responsible Growth Arkansas, says the state has to start printing ballots by August 25th, which doesn't give the Supreme Court enough time to make its decision.
And they're going to decide whether our ballot title is sufficient and we're certified to go. And if that's the case, everybody's vote is going to count. And if by chance they say that our ballot title's not sufficient, then they just won't count those votes.
Lancaster is hopeful for a favorable decision sometime next month. Now, while the Senate is on its August recess, Senator John Boozman will be in Little Rock today visiting a child nutrition program. Boozman was in Pine Bluff yesterday to see the progress being made with the Go Forward Pine Bluff program. He toured the Pine Bluff Aquatic Center and commended the work done by the mayor and city leaders. He says the next step is to see how the federal government can help.
Regionally, Pine Bluff is doing a good job of that, and so what we can do is use the power of the federal government. Can't solve all of our problems, but there are a lot of grant opportunities and this and that. We just want to make sure that we're getting our share plus some.
In addition to touring the Aquatic Center, Senator Boozman also met leaders from UAPB. And House lawmakers are set to return to Washington to vote on a landmark climate, health care, and tax bill. The Inflation Reduction Act has riled up Democrats behind it and Republicans who are not for it. And Johnson & Johnson says it will discontinue its talc-based baby powder worldwide. This comes about 2 years after doing so here in North America. The pharma giant faces nearly 40,000 lawsuits claiming the powder caused illness, including cancer, because of asbestos contamination. Now, in other news, the nation's top public health agency has relaxed its COVID-19 guidelines. That means big changes, especially as children prepare to head back to school. Dan Lieberman has more on what this means for you and your family.
The CDC's new guidelines mark a significant change from protocols that have kept Americans on edge for 2.5 years of the pandemic. Among its new recommendations, 6 feet of social distancing is no longer recommended. Also, people exposed to the virus no longer have to quarantine at home, but should wear masks for 10 days and test for the virus on day 5. But the guidelines around masking indoors, especially where community COVID levels are high, remain the same.
We're in a different place now with boosters, with antivirals, with monoclonal antibodies. I mean, things are much different in how we can keep people out of the hospital. Vaccinated plus an infection, hybrid immunity is very strong. And I finally see that the CDC is recognizing that.
And big changes for kids at schools across the country this fall. Masks will be optional in most districts, with some of the largest scaling back or eliminating COVID testing requirements. The American Federation of Teachers said it welcomes the CDC's new guidance. Still, the U.S. is recording more than 100,000 cases and some 500 deaths a day.
With what the tools we have, the way we keep updating them, the way we keep building better treatments, I am confident that we're going to be able to stay ahead of this virus.
The CDC estimates between vaccines and prior infections, around 95% of Americans over the age of 16 currently have some level of protection. Dan Lieberman, CBS News, New York.
And here at home, decreasing hospitalizations have led to improvements in Arkansas's COVID-19 community levels. The majority of Arkansas is now in the medium level, where only high-risk people are being told to mask up. Still, 24 counties have high levels of severe COVID, and that includes Pulaski County. Here, mask wearing is still recommended for everyone in public. It's a deadly but curable infection. Just ahead, why many people with hepatitis C are not getting treatment. Plus, Nathan?
Mackailyn, the weekend has arrived and we are going to see some typical summer-like conditions. Temperatures will be heating up, especially by Sunday, but next week the weather becomes much more active. I'll have details on that next.